I never thought that the same condition that made me unemployable would be the key to building a multimillion-dollar empire. My name is Marcus, I'm 28 years old, and I have autism spectrum disorder. For most of my life, people saw my differences as limitations, but what happened 2 years ago changed everything not just for me, but for an entire company that once rejected me. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when I walked into the gleaming glass towers of TechFlow Industries for what I thought would be my dream job interview. I had spent weeks preparing, researching every detail about their software development processes, memorizing their company values, and practicing my responses to common interview questions. My resume was flawless: computer science degree with honors, multiple certifications in programming languages, and several freelance projects that had received excellent reviews. But there was something about me that most employers couldn't see past. Before I continue with this story that completely transformed my perspective on what it means to be different, if you believe that our unique minds can change the world, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more inspiring stories about turning our differences into superpowers. As I sat in the waiting room, I could feel my hands starting to flap slightly, a stemming behavior that helps me manage anxiety. I quickly clasped them together, trying to appear normal. The receptionist kept glancing at me with a puzzled expression as I rocked almost imperceptibly in my chair. These weren't things I could control. They were part of how my autistic brain processed stress and overwhelming sensory input. The interview panel consisted of 3 people: Sarah, the HR director; Mike, the team lead; and Jennifer, the department manager. From the moment I walked in, I could sense their discomfort. They had clearly read my resume and were expecting someone different, someone who fit their narrow definition of what a successful programmer should look like. "So, Marcus," Sarah began, "tell us about yourself." I had rehearsed this answer countless times, but being in the fluorescent-lit room with the humming air conditioner and the scratching sound of their pens on paper was overwhelming my senses. I started my response, but I could tell they were more focused on my lack of eye contact than my words. "I notice you're not looking at us when you speak," Mike interrupted. "In our collaborative environment, strong interpersonal skills and the ability to connect with team members is crucial." I tried to explain that eye contact was challenging for me due to my autism, but that it didn't affect my ability to communicate effectively or work with others. However, I could see their expressions change the moment I mentioned my diagnosis. The warmth that was barely there to begin with completely disappeared. Jennifer leaned forward with a condescending smile. "We appreciate your honesty, Marcus, but we need team members who can adapt to our fast-paced, high-pressure environment. Someone who can think outside the box and handle multiple projects simultaneously." What they didn't understand was that my autistic brain was precisely what made me excel at those very things. My ability to hyperfocus meant I could work for hours on complex problems without distraction. My attention to detail caught errors that others missed. My pattern recognition skills allowed me to see solutions that neurotypical minds often overlooked. But they couldn't see past their preconceptions. The final blow came from Mike, who had been typing on his laptop throughout most of the interview. "Look, Marcus," he said without even looking up, "we don't hire people like you. This isn't personal, it's just that our clients expect a certain level of professionalism. Someone who can represent our company in meetings, handle client relationships, and work seamlessly with our existing team culture." "People like me?" I asked, though I already knew what he meant. "You know," Sarah jumped in, trying to soften the obvious discrimination. "People who might need special accommodations or who don't quite fit our company image. We've had issues before with employees who required too much hand-holding or who made clients uncomfortable." I left that building feeling smaller than I had in years. Despite my qualifications, despite my passion for technology, despite my innovative solutions to complex problems, they had reduced me to a collection of stereotypes and misconceptions about autism. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, processing what had just happened and fighting back tears of frustration and humiliation. But here's what they didn't know about me. Rejection has always been fuel for my determination. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started working on something that had been brewing in my mind for months: a revolutionary data analysis platform that could predict market trends with unprecedented accuracy. You see, my autistic brain processes patterns differently than neurotypical minds. Where others see random data points, I see connections and relationships. Where others get overwhelmed by massive datasets, I find clarity and order. This isn't because I'm smarter than anyone else. It's because my brain is wired differently, and those differences are actually advantages in the right context. For the next 6 months, I worked 18-hour days developing my platform. My ability to hyperfocus meant I could code for 10 hours straight without a break, solving complex algorithms that had stumped teams of programmers. My need for routine and structure meant I approached the project systematically, documenting every step and testing every function meticulously. I called my platform Neuroanalytics, partly as a nod to my own neurodivergence and partly because it used neural network technology in ways that hadn't been done before. The platform could analyze market data, social media trends, consumer behavior patterns, and economic indicators simultaneously, providing predictions with 94% accuracy, significantly higher than anything currently available in the market. The breakthrough came when I realized that my sensory processing differences actually helped me notice patterns in data visualization that others missed. The way my brain processed visual information allowed me to see correlations and anomalies that were invisible to neurotypical analysts. What had always been seen as a disability was actually a superpower in the right context. After months of testing and refinement, I knew I had something special. But I also knew that my social communication differences would make it challenging to pitch to investors or clients in traditional settings. So I did what any logical person would do. I let the data speak for itself. I created a demo that tracked the stock performance of 50 major companies over 6 months, comparing my platform's predictions to actual market movements. The results were staggering. My algorithm had predicted market shifts, merger announcements, and even product launch successes with remarkable accuracy. Word began to spread in the tech community about this mysterious new platform that was outperforming every existing market analysis tool. I started getting inquiries from investment firms, hedge funds, and major corporations. One of those inquiries came from a familiar name, TechFlow Industries. Jennifer, the same department manager who had told me they didn't hire people like me, sent an email requesting a meeting to discuss potential partnership opportunities. She had no idea that the creator of Neuroanalytics was the same person they had rejected just 8 months earlier. I agreed to the meeting, but on my terms. Instead of going to their office, I insisted on a virtual presentation where I could control my environment and minimize sensory distractions. I had also hired an assistant, Maria, who understood my communication style and could help facilitate interactions when needed. The presentation was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. Jennifer, Mike, and Sarah were all present, along with several executives I hadn't met before. I had prepared extensively, creating visual presentations that would showcase the platform's capabilities without requiring extensive verbal explanation. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with us," Jennifer began. "We're very interested in learning more about neuroanalytics. Our clients have been asking about more sophisticated market analysis tools, and your platform seems to be exactly what they need." I started the demonstration showing them real-time analysis of market data and the platform's predictive capabilities. I watched their faces as they realized the scope of what they were seeing. This wasn't just another analytics tool, this was a complete paradigm shift in how market analysis could be conducted. "This is incredible," Mike said, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine amazement. "How did you develop this? What team are you working with?" "Actually," I said, my heart racing as I prepared for the revelation, "I developed this myself. And I think we've met before." I turned on my camera for the first time during the meeting. The silence was deafening as recognition dawned on their faces. Jennifer's confident demeanor crumbled. Mike's face flushed red. Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear. "You're the candidate we interviewed last year," Jennifer stammered. "The one who?" "The one you said you don't hire people like," I finished for her. "Yes, that's me. The person whose autism apparently made me unemployable is the same person whose autistic brain created the technology you're now desperate to license." The next few minutes were awkward as they tried to process what was happening. Here was the person they had dismissed and discriminated against, now in a position of power, holding the key to technology that could transform their business. "Marcus," Sarah finally spoke, "I think there may have been some misunderstandings during our previous meeting. We'd love to discuss bringing you on board as a senior developer or consultant." I couldn't help but laugh, though not unkindly. That's interesting because 8 months ago, you were concerned about my ability to represent your company to clients. Now you want me to be the face of your new analytics division. Mike tried to salvage the situation. We've learned a lot since then about the value of neurodiversity in tech. We're implementing new policies to be more inclusive. That's good to hear, I replied. But I'm not looking for a job anymore. I'm looking for investment partners. I then revealed what they didn't know. Neuroanalytics wasn't just a single platform. I had been building an entire suite of applications that leveraged neurodivergent thinking patterns for everything from cybersecurity to medical diagnosis. I had already secured partnerships with 3 major hospitals and 2 cybersecurity firms. What I needed now was capital to scale. The executives perked up immediately. This wasn't just about hiring me. This was about getting in on the ground floor of what could be the next major breakthrough in artificial intelligence and data analysis. "What kind of investment are you looking for?" asked Robert, the CEO who had joined the call. "I'm seeking $5 million in series of funding for a 15% equity stake," I said calmly. "Based on our current contracts and projected growth, we're looking at a $30 million valuation within 18 months. The room went silent. They had gone from rejecting me for a $60,000 programming position to being offered the opportunity to invest in a company I had built from nothing. A company that was already worth more than many of their existing divisions. "We'd need to see your financials, review your contracts, conduct due diligence," Robert said, though I could tell he was already interested. "Of course," I replied. "Maria will send you the information packet. But I should mention that I'm also in discussions with 3 other investment groups, and I plan to make a decision within 2 weeks." What followed was the most intense 2 weeks of my life. 4 different investment groups, including TechFlow, competed for the opportunity to fund my company. They all wanted to understand how I had achieved such remarkable results in such a short time. The answer was simple, though it took me years to understand it myself. My autism wasn't a limitation to overcome. It was an advantage to leverage. My attention to detail, my ability to see patterns others missed, my systematic thinking, my hyperfocus, these weren't bugs in my programming, they were features. During the due diligence process, something unexpected happened. The other investment groups started asking me about my development process, my problem-solving methods, my team structure. They realized that my neurodivergent perspective wasn't just useful for this one platform. It represented a fundamentally different approach to innovation. TechFlow's final presentation was scheduled for a Friday morning. Jennifer, Mike, Sarah, and Robert all attended, along with their chief financial officer and head of strategic partnerships. They had prepared an elaborate presentation about why I should choose them as my investment partner. "Marcus," Robert began, "we want to start by acknowledging that we made a serious mistake 8 months ago. Our interview process was biased, and we failed to recognize your potential. We've since implemented mandatory neurodiversity training for all our hiring managers and are working with autism advocacy groups to improve our practices. I appreciated the acknowledgement, but I was more interested in their business proposal than their apology. They offered the $5 million I had requested, but at a 12% equity stake instead of 15%. They also proposed additional resources, access to their client network, their marketing team, and their established relationships with major corporations. Most importantly, they offered something the other investment groups couldn't: the chance to prove that neurodivergent minds could not only succeed in tech but could lead the industry. "We want to create a neurodiversity initiative within our company," Jennifer explained. "You would head a new division focused on developing innovative solutions using neurodivergent thinking patterns. We'd actively recruit autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, and other neurodivergent developers and analysts." This was more than just an investment. It was an opportunity to change how the entire industry viewed neurodivergence. Instead of seeing autism as something to accommodate or overcome, they were proposing to see it as a competitive advantage. But I had one condition. I want final hiring authority for the neurodiversity division. No more situations where qualified candidates are rejected because they don't make eye contact or because they stim or because they communicate differently. We hire based on ability and potential, period. "Agreed," Robert said without hesitation. I accepted their investment offer, but not before making one more point. I want everyone in this room to understand something. You didn't invest in me despite my autism. You invested in me because of it. My autism is what allowed me to see patterns others missed, to focus intensely on complex problems, to approach challenges from unique angles. When you create inclusive environments that leverage neurodivergent strengths, you don't just help people like me, you create competitive advantages for your entire organization. 2 years later, neuroanalytics has grown beyond my wildest expectations. We now have contracts with 12 major corporations, our predictive accuracy has improved to 96%, and we've expanded into healthcare analytics and environmental monitoring. The neurodiversity division at TechFlow has become their most innovative and profitable department. But more importantly, we've hired 47 neurodivergent employees across various roles: programmers, analysts, designers, and researchers. Each one brings unique perspectives and capabilities that have made our products better and our solutions more creative. Mike, the team lead who had been so dismissive during my interview, now heads one of our development teams. He's become one of the strongest advocates for neurodiversity in hiring and has publicly spoken about how his preconceptions almost cost the company millions of dollars in lost opportunities. Jennifer regularly speaks at conferences about the business value of neurodiversity, sharing our story as an example of what happens when companies move beyond tolerance to true appreciation of different minds. Sarah has completely redesigned their interview process to be more inclusive, focusing on skills demonstrations rather than traditional interviews that can disadvantage neurodivergent candidates. Last month, I was invited to speak at the International Conference on Neurodiversity in Technology. In my presentation, I shared something that I think is crucial for everyone to understand. Neurodivergent minds aren't broken neurotypical minds that need to be fixed. We're different operating systems running on the same hardware, each with unique capabilities and advantages. My autism gives me the ability to hyperfocus for hours, to see patterns in complex data, to approach problems systematically, and to notice details others miss. These aren't compensations for my disability. These are features of my neurology that create value in the right environment. The young autistic programmer in the audience who approached me after my talk reminded me of myself 2 years ago. Brilliant, passionate, but constantly told that their differences made them unemployable. I gave them my card and told them what I wish someone had told me years earlier. Your autism isn't something to hide or overcome. It's something to leverage and celebrate. Companies like TechFlow are beginning to understand that neurodiversity isn't just about being inclusive. It's about being innovative. When you create teams that include different types of minds, you solve problems in ways that homogeneous teams never could. The technology industry is finally starting to recognize what I've known for years. The future belongs to those who can think differently, process information uniquely, and approach challenges from unexpected angles. And many of us who think differently happen to be neurodivergent. Today, when I walk into that same glass tower where I was once rejected, I'm not just a visitor or an employee. I'm a partner and an investor. The company that once told me they don't hire people like me now depends on people exactly like me for their continued success and innovation. But the most rewarding part isn't the financial success or the recognition. It's the emails I get from autistic teenagers who saw my story and realized that their differences could be superpowers. It's the parents who tell me that their child's diagnosis no longer feels like a limitation but like a potential advantage. It's the employers who are learning to see autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and other neurodivergent conditions as sources of innovation rather than obstacles to overcome. My journey from unemployable to investor taught me that the world doesn't need us to become neurotypical. The world needs us to become the best versions of our neurodivergent selves. When we embrace our differences and find environments that value our unique capabilities, we don't just succeed. We excel in ways that surprise everyone, including ourselves. If you're neurodivergent and facing rejection, discrimination, or people who can't see past your differences, remember this. They're not rejecting you because you're incapable. They're rejecting you because they lack the vision to recognize capability in a different package. Find the people and places that see your potential, leverage your unique strengths, and show the world what neurodivergent minds can accomplish. The company that once said they don't hire people like me learned that they couldn't afford not to hire people like me. And that made all the difference, not just for me, But for every neurodivergent person who comes after me, knowing that their differences aren't barriers to overcome but bridges to success.